Hello, my name's Reuben Brown. I'm a DECRA Research Fellow. I've been living and working here at Naarm, Woiwurrung country, part of the Kulin Nations and the University of Melbourne. And I've been collaborating and working with Binin and Arakbi from Warwi, which is Maung country, and Gunbalanya, which is Ere, Uningank, and Mengerki country. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and future of these nations, and also to elders of nations represented among all of you who are participating in this conference. Today we are going to hear contributions from elders and ceremony leaders of the public ceremonial genre of Western Arnhem Land called Gunborg in Biningunwok language and Manyardi in Maung. These include Jimmy Galaria, Solomon Nangamu, Jenny Manmurulu, and her family. Collaborators, linguist, ethnomusicologist Isabel O'Keefe and linguist Ruth Singer have also contributed to this presentation. We pay special tribute to Linda Barwick, whose work to date has shaped our field of applied collaborative ethnomusicological and linguistic research in Western Arnhem Land. I also want to acknowledge the collaborative work of other presenters who are helping to ensure the survival and maintenance of ancestral knowledges, languages, and cultural practices in the PARADISEC archive and beyond. The title of this presentation refers to a reburial ceremony at Gunbalanya, in which the remains of Binin people's ancestors, stolen in 1948 by members of the American Australian Scientific Expedition to Arnhem Land, were sung and danced home. For my PhD research, supervised by Linda Barwick, I assisted Binin with preparations for this ceremony and helped to document the songs and speeches, which spoke directly to the ancestral spirits of the remains so that they would hear their countrymen and know that they were safely home again. In the video, we see the ancestors being delivered into their final resting place between Arguluk and Inyalak Hills, where they were taken with a performance of Garbada, Long Yan, associated with the Stone Country Plateau and Gunmingal people of Gunbalanya. Senior Elder Nagoyok Nawurban Jimmy Galaria, who passed away in 2012, was a teenager in 1948, living in the bush when the expedition arrived. He didn't know that the archaeologist Frank Setzler had secretly removed bones from graves in surrounding caves. Here, he reflects after the ceremony about hearing them using the Gunwingal verb root, bekkan, which means both to listen or hear and to feel, touch. In Western Arnhem Land, individual singers inherit from their fathers or male relatives custodianship over a group of songs or a song set. Songmen such as Solomon Nangamu often describe hearing ancestors as part of the process of conceiving new songs, which are added to their repertory of inherited songs named after the plants, spirits, animals from the country.
Myself, I can listen eclectic. Somebody watch me, but they sing it for me. They give me that song and I sing that song. Like I got a couple of new songs now when I was living there, and I get it in my dream. Like my ancestors, they come, talk to me, yeah, and I listen. That they're gonna give me something, a present, like a gift. They give me a gift.
Gift of the song.
Yeah, gift the song. Yeah. Then I have the song. Then I pass it to my son and my grandchildren. Like pass it on to them.
Yep.
And so on and on and on.
Tony Seeger defines the repatriation of archival recordings as the return of music, to circulation in communities where it has been unavailable as a result of external power differences, often the result of colonialism. Recent projects in Australia involving sound repatriation as a research methodology, many of which are explored in an edited volume titled Archival Returns by Barwick, Green and Varzan Moral, have further nuanced our understanding of the role of archives and archival systems in differing contexts where Indigenous song and dance practices are being revived, maintained, or reclaimed. Indigenous researchers and collaborators have drawn on local knowledge frameworks in order to reintegrate archival recordings into contemporary practices and relationships. For example, Junba songman Matthew Martins relayed to Sally Treloyne in his perspectives on the return of archival song recordings to the Kimberley as part of a law and practice called Wurnan. Pai Linda Ford also applied her Rakmakmak Baranungu philosophy of the Mirwana Saikad palm and Wurkama work done leaching toxins from the cycad fruit in preparation for eating at ceremony to the process of returning recordings of ceremony from the Daly region. Clint Bracknell writes about the effect of listening back to recordings on people's well-being and suggests that repatriated recordings can reaffirm intimate personal relationships between people and ancestors, country and kin, and contribute to understandings of local history. As part of my PhD research, I also collaborated with elders and singers at Gunbalanya, Jabiru and Warui to return digital sound and film recordings recorded during the same expedition in 1948. Elders such as Galaria enriched the record of archival recordings by naming the singers and placing them in their country and in relation to kin today. Songmen such as Nangamu also identified genres and didgeridoo playing styles and invited me to record his own newly conceived songs at various ceremonial events in order to add to the archival record for future generations. Building on research carried out by Barwick and Marrett, I found a diversity of songs from the 1948 recordings. Songs in ordinary languages, spirit languages, mixed languages from the saltwater and the stone country, as far as the Daly region. This same diversity appears across the region today, although it's concentrated in communities such as Golden Island and Warui, and not in Gunbalanya, where fewer songmen and margle players reside. I'll return to the story at Gunbalanya and to ongoing efforts to maintain, revitalise and recreate Gunborg later in this presentation. For now, let's pivot to Linda Barwick's work in Western Arnhem Land and neighbouring regions, spanning at least 15 years. I can't cover it all, of course, but I'd like to touch on three aspects. The first is her focus on community access to archival collections and song data. The second is her interdisciplinary collaboration. And the third is her support of research networks involving Indigenous scholars and musicians, such as the annual Indigenous Music and Dance Symposia and ARC projects she has led that apply local Indigenous knowledge frameworks. For my PhD, I was able to draw upon a significant corpus of linked and searchable metadata via the Western Arnhem Land Song Project. This enabled me to find recordings in the field that Binin and Arakwi were looking for, based on their queries like, I'd like to listen to some guri, guri being the blue-tongue lizard song set. Linda's collaborative work on the Wadair Song database and the website For the Sake of a Song has also shown what's possible in terms of searching and presenting recordings linked to song texts, linguistic and musical annotations, and making the data more accessible for community members and scholars to use. Linda's scholarly work crosses cultures and disciplines. Her article with linguist Birch and Evans on Iwaja Judbirg songs, analysing the Judbirg song set in Iwajan language, makes a compelling case for the analysis of language and music together. They write that song as a medium gives us a special opportunity to reveal some of this fine cultural knowledge which is in the minds of language speakers, both as songmen and as ordinary speakers, but which may only appear in the rare moments so delicately portrayed in this song genre. As we heard in Jenny Munrulu's tribute earlier, Linda Barwick and Alan Marrett have nurtured lasting relationships with Gunborg and Manyardi ceremony leaders and created spaces for Indigenous voices, knowledges, and cultural practices in the Academy. Here's Jenny reflecting on how she and other Western Island Land singers presenting at the Symposium on Indigenous Music and Dance at Charles Darwin University in 2011 came to formalise a Mamurung ceremony in 2012, for which I was the recipient. This ceremony was supported through Barwick and Marritt's Australian Research Council Discovery Project. Was it 2011 when we were in Darwin and they cut my hair and gave it to you?
Yeah, because I was showing that that Ninji, that the CDU was videoed us. And we put it up. Remember, we were watching at Nauru.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's where Ellen said, "Oh, I'll have to cut Reuben's hair," you know? Yeah.
As Pai, Linda Ford, Marritt and Barwick write, the integration of our interests within a shared culturally meaningful framework has offered us new ways to engage with each other and in turn created new research pathways of knowing, being and doing. One outcome of this was a Mamurung ceremony, a different one this time, and cultural exchange between Arukbi and Rakmakmakmaranungul families and collaborators at Twin Hills Station. This one was supported by Pai Linda Ford's ARC project, New Ways for Old Ceremony. In Western Arnhem Land, whilst intergenerational participation in Gunbork and Manyodi is present and diverse songs in multiple languages are remembered, song knowledge is concentrated among a small number of custodians and Margo or Arawir didgeridoo players. Two initiatives that I'm leading and facilitating in collaboration with Gunbork Manyodi songmen address this. The first is a Festivals Australia grant called the Mangare or Ceremony Project, which is led by Inyalak Arts. And this will bring expert songmen and Arawir players like Rupert and Solomon from Goulburn Island to Gunbalanya to assist apprentice singers in reviving dormant song sets like Guri and maintaining other song sets such as Garbara. My DECRA project, starting this week, is titled Modern Diplomacy and aims to support apprentice singers and local organisations like Inyalak by creating a locally accessible database of Western Arnhem Land archival song recordings linked to metadata using the Discovery Database tool in FileMaker Pro. And the features and further development of this tool will be discussed by Sally Trelawney in her presentation. And using the Discovery tool, we've been able to show what's possible in terms of looking at recordings and song data from a variety of angles, depending on the different ways a community user or custodian might approach it. Using PARADISEC's catalogue data harvest feature and Raspberry Pi Wi-Fi transmitter, we can create subsets of song recordings from this database and linked metadata for offline access via mobile phone or tablets during and in the lead up to the festival. So this is the plan. So in conclusion, insights from Binin and Arakbi of Western Arnhem Land about hearing ancestors as part of the return of remains and songs highlight how physical returns rely on what we might consider intangible practices of ceremony and language, and conversely how cultural materials in digital formats are physically re-embedded in country and to their places of origin. Through her documentation of Western Arnhem Land song and her analysis of diverse cultural and linguistic practices from this region, her commitment to making cultural materials accessible, and her collaborative work with Indigenous practitioners, Linda Barwick has laid out a path for future generations of scholars to follow. Following Indigenous ways of knowing articulated by Jenny and David Munrulu, Pai Linda Ford, and others, she's modelled ways that Balanda, or non-Indigenous and European whitefellas, can learn about and work within Arabbi Bining Aboriginal knowledge systems and ceremonial practices, and also assist in sustaining them. Western Arnhem Land singers, including Injalatical songman James Gullamore, describe Gunborg and Manyari in terms of following footsteps of ancestors and relatives that came before them. In Binin Gunwok, the verb gadjung means literally to follow or chase, but it can also be used in the sense of singing a secret ceremonial song or following a text and melody of a public ceremonial song, Gunborg. And as Alan Marrett writes in relation to Wonga, this concept also applies to dance. Through synchronizing their movements with the clapstick beating, dancers tread in the footsteps of the ancestral ghosts summoned by the power of song. Linda Barwick has fostered collaborative, community-led research guided by knowledge holders and based on reciprocity and respect, and trained PhD students like me to be attentive to issues of access, such as where are the local repositories, analysis, what are the songs actually telling us, and relationships, what is my role and responsibility, and what is the role of these songs and dances to the ancestral world. In so doing, she's encouraged a new generation to follow in hers and Alan's footsteps and tune into what the ancestors and custodians of their songs are telling us.